Now, I don't know about you, but I love ships. I'm surprised that more people don't as well. There's just something so incredibly cool about these behemoths of the ocean ploughing around with their massive size. People are always interested in spaceships and intergalactic transport and so on, but we have that just on the sea. Anyway, I digress. Ships are good. Therefore, I was accordingly excited when Stena Line, the Swedish ferry company, announced that they'd be acquiring a new fleet of ships for their Belfast to Liverpool and Holyhead to Dublin routes on the Irish Sea. These would be known as E-Flexes and would be designed in-house by Stena Line. But what are they actually like? And are they really a step up for the passenger? I understand a lot of you here will be more interested in trains than ships, so I'll try not to bore you to death. But essentially, the E-Flexes are a type of ro-ro ferry. This stands for roll on, roll off, and it means vehicles, usually road vehicles but occasionally trains, can drive on at one end and drive off at the other, through huge doors in the bow and stern. Now, unlike more or less any other vehicle, ships are usually custom built to order. As they're so massive and expensive, shipping lines tend not to want to commit to buying a huge fleet of ships in one go, so instead they do it one by one. This means there's a huge variety in the ships you see, with naval architects being a very high demand position. And this is precisely why the E-Flexes are special. They're designed to be a standardised class of ship, one that can be fine-tuned for different purposes, but will ultimately be the same ship repeated over and over again, saving costs in design and manufacture. Now, fleet standardisations, for the reasons listed prior, can be good in any form of transport. But if the design chosen isn't great, then well, you're looking at a poor quality vessel on all of your routes, which is not at all desirable. As a result, there's an immense amount of weight on these ships to perform well. So, let's start with the exterior. They're very long and thin, and aren't particularly tall, which I think gives them a nice elegant appearance. It's certainly much better than the oversized monsters we've been seeing recently. One thing I don't like though is just how few passenger decks there are. There are only 2 full ones, with the rest being taken up by crew or vehicle space. It gives an unusually empty hull. I do very much like the bow though. The mix of portholes and rectangular windows is very smart in my opinion. But what's it actually like inside? Well, I'll be talking about the Stena Edda and Stena Embla here. I've never actually been on the Estrid, but they're more or less identical. I do have a few points where I refer specifically to one ship, but for the most part it's all the same. Right, the car decks. Well, they're car decks, there's not much more to say about them. They're quite nice and spacious, they do the job. But the ships really come into their own when you enter their stairwells. You're blown away by the sheer modernity of the designs. It is very stylish too. As you progress up the ship and into the public areas, you're greeted with a continuation of this modern style. You'll find public seating scattered all over the vessel. This means that even on very busy sailings, the ship feels very quiet, which provides for very pleasant sailings. Even better, there's a variety of different nooks and crannies, so despite a very spacious feel, you can always find somewhere semi-private to relax. My personal favourite place is an area called the living room towards the bow on the port side. It's usually very quiet and I really like the decor. It feels very cosy. I also love the skybar towards the centre. It's sort of like the hub of the ship, and it's executed really well, with again fantastic decor and a nice spacious feel. I'm also keen on the occasional statues and bits of greenery that are dotted around the bar. Makes the place feel very lived in. As for other places to lounge about, you'll find 2 private rooms at the bow. These are the Stena Plus Lounge, a sort of first-class lounge with snacks and a generally pleasant ambience, and the Hygge Lounge, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is like a large reclining seat place to sleep if you want. They're both very nice, but the Hygge Lounge in particular is stunning with that dark aesthetic. Talking of exclusive areas, there's also a trucker's lounge, and some kennels on the starboard bow. They even have their own little bit of deck space so you can walk your dog in the middle of a sailing. For passengers wishing to sleep, on either a day or night crossing, cabins can be purchased in addition to the ticket price. The cabins are, broadly speaking, excellent. They're quite spacious, impeccably designed, and very clean. I really like the general colour schemes going on, though I'm not a big fan of the deluxe cabins with their unusual wall glass things. I know it's artwork, but I think it'll age quite poorly. Still, The huge portholes and balcony access is great. The sacks are appreciated too. As a bit of a tangent, the passageways, or are they called corridors in this context, are some of the best designed things I've ever seen in any transport vehicle. The choice of the colour scheme is impeccable. You wouldn't think all these different colours would work well together, but they do, and it's brilliant. But what about entertainment? Well, it's no Brittany Ferries. You won't find any live entertainers on board, which I actually think is quite a good thing. But what you can find is a film. And unusually, Stena Line have decided to ditch the idea of a cinema and instead go for 2 small movie lounges. I actually think this is a good idea as well. It means they're lovely and spacious, and they can be used as extra seating if films aren't being shown. It does feel like a little bit of a waste though that some of these lovely portholes have been covered up. As for food, well, you can purchase light snacks, along with drinks, in both the sky bar and the area underneath by the information desks. However, for more substantial meals, you'll have to head forward to the Taste restaurant located just behind the bow. I'm in 2 minds about the Taste restaurant. Whilst the food is very nice, if expensive, I'm not really sure if the interior aesthetic really works for a restaurant. I'd rather there was a more formal setting, like on Brittany Ferries, for example. If you can't bear eating something though and want to go outside, well, fear not, for there's copious amounts of deck space both on the top deck and on the sort of promenades on the side. It's amazing for a modern ship, there's never usually this much. But this is all on paper. How do the ships actually perform in service? Well, they ride rather well. Of course, the waves do rock them slightly, but it's far less noticeable than on some other ferries. That said though, I've noticed Stena Edda has a tendency to list a port. I'm not really sure why. It could just be loading. But it's not the ride that's the most concerning. It's the build quality. Whilst the ships are on the whole relatively sturdy, I am a little worried about a few things, particularly the presence of rust and rattling in the cabins. This is the builder's plate, for example. Here in 2020, it was relatively clean. Then the following year it started to deteriorate, and by 2022 it was shocking. That's not a very long time. Now the cynical, and perhaps prejudiced thing to say would be that they shouldn't have built the ships in China, but I don't think this is a particularly useful thing to comment on. There's nothing inherently wrong with Chinese ships, and indeed, as I said before, I think the build quality is on the whole rather good. I'm still a little curious as to why the crew haven't repaired the builder's plate. Is there a bit of resentment, perhaps? This wouldn't entirely surprise me, as unlike their British-flagged predecessors, the E-flexes have been outflagged to Cyprus, which, while standard industry practice, is a little bit suspicious for a ferry company. All things considered though, I do think these are fantastic vessels, and are arguably the perfect modern ship. Indeed, I'd probably go as far to say that the Stenas Estrid, Edda and Embla are probably the best public transport vehicles of any variety to have entered service over the past decade. That sounds like a stretch, but I don't think it is. They really are that good. Well, there you go. That's my opinions on the Stena reflexes. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'm sorry this took so long to produce. The next few videos should be a little quicker. Oh, and I do apologise about the nasal voice. Hay fever's really hitting badly. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of this video about ships. I know it's quite a bit of a deviation from my usual content, but I quite enjoyed making it, so let me know if you want more. Equally, don't be embarrassed to ask for more trains. That's completely fine. But yes, I'll see you next time, and goodbye.